Good afternoon and welcome to this final episode of Sofa Safari for 2020. Cannot believe that this year is gone already. Starting in the afternoon, just because I can. It's a different way of doing it. It is warm today, so it's quite a late start, just after 5. Sitting in the shade here just to get out of the sun, because you sit in the sun and you just perspire. Our plan for the afternoon is to go to some wild dogs, a pack that was found on our Nkari property, close to Nkari homestead this morning. So yeah, we're going to aim to get there as they get active. Hope they get active. It is very warm down. I know they were quite well fed this morning, but the hope is that they will give us a show this afternoon. But let's go and see what the bush has to offer. Come along for the ride. So we've come down to see the wild dogs. Unfortunately, this...
You can stop doing turn back now. They've just crossed the shallow human.
Yes, this lioness unfortunately had other plans and ran in and chased the dogs. Dale was with the dogs and it sounded like they got up, greeted each other, obviously made a noise. She must have been resting close by, heard the commotion and came running in. Now we'll have to double check the photos, but chances are pretty good that this is the sole remaining lioness from the once dominant Ross pride. Small chance it could be the Zebanine female, but we haven't seen her for so long. Yeah, much more likely to be the Ross lioness. She has been seen in this area occasionally over the last few months, but we don't drive down here very often. And as we're kind of the only lodge that uses this area, there's not a lot of vehicle traffic. If it is her or whoever it is on their own, they're doing very, very well. I know there have been reports of the Ross female way up north, so she's been wandering around, probably kind of squeezed out by the River Pride and the Giraffe Pride in the west. And you haven't got much hope as a single lioness of keeping a territory, but as long as you can keep yourself fed, maybe things will change. There's a bit of a sad feeling seeing lionesses alone. Such tremendously social cats as we've discussed in the past, and although they don't feel things like loneliness and are very capable of doing it on their own, as she's proving, we just have such a connection with them as social cats, so when you see them on their own, it is a bit of a weird one. I remember many years ago when I was still guiding up in the north, coming down and seeing the Ross Pride. I think there were about 11 individuals. When I started working here, they were down to just two females, and that one female did have cubs at the end of last year, but something obviously happened to her and the cubs. There's been no sign of them for ages. Ears constantly twitching. Probably hear the buzzing of flies around me, so you can imagine on her poor face the flies being drawn to the moisture of her nose and her eyes. Constantly trying to get rid of the peskiness of the buzzing flies. Okay, so the lioness is very content. We came all this way for the dogs. They unfortunately are not playing along, and there's the odd visual here and there, but they're highly mobile in a big block. We're going to make our way into that area and hope for the best. Maybe they show, maybe they don't. But if you don't try, you don't know. Hot day, no surprises to find creatures in mud wallows, although I did pass some buffalo. Hyenas are also, as you said before, they're quite fond of water. They're very happy to spend their days chilling it out here. Nice cooling effect as they walk away with that water all over their coats. Sunset over the Drakensberg. A little valley on the right hand side of the image at the moment. That is the Blyder River, the Blyder River Canyon, third largest canyon in the world, and then the highest point on this part of the Transvaal portion of the Drakensberg called Maripskop, there just below the setting sun. Still on the search for these dogs. A little cluster of impalas, but look at that baby in the middle. Just left of the one that's run now. So much smaller than the others. Tiny, tiny, tiny. So they've just been added to the herd. It also gives you an indication of how quick they grow. I mean, when we see them on a daily basis, we don't realize that they're growing. Only when the new ones get brought to the herd, you realize how much bigger the firstborns were. That's the tiny one now out in the open. Alas, the search is coming to an end and there's still no wild dogs. That lioness really messed up my afternoon, in a way, because I wanted to see the wild dogs, but very nice to see her. Light is almost gone, so I'm going to be heading back to camp. I'm going to be on drive with guests from tomorrow for a few days, so I may throw in a few little clips of what we saw, but otherwise I will resume filming this episode after that, sometime next week. So enjoy what I saw over the previous few days of safari. And just like that, by the power vested in video editing, I'm back. It's a week and a half later since I recorded that last segment, and it's been a good week and a half, or however long it's been. Had a lot of rain. Bush is looking amazing. We've had almost 3 inches of rain, 75 mils, just little bits topping it up. So it's actually very wet today. I'm doing this on Christmas Day, so Merry Christmas to all of those that are celebrating. May you have a blessed time with friends and family, or as many friends and family as you are allowed to under these weird times. I am out now. I'm going to go check up on something, and I will then just run over a few of the sightings that we've had in the last week and a bit, or again, however long it's been. But when I get to the other sighting, I will let you know what it's about. Before we get to that other sighting, just a bunch of creatures out now following yesterday's rain. One of our larger millipedes that we are all very familiar with. I've shown them before. Beautifully called shongololos in South Africa. But what I actually wanted to show you was this other little guy here. He is also a millipede, called a pill millipede. Not quite as many segments, as many legs as our 1000-voetler, the 1000-footer. But this little pill millipede is very beautiful. I mean, it's like he's spent the evening polishing that little shell of his. I don't know if he'll do it. Oh, there we go. Rolls up into a little pill as its defensive mechanism. Same as the bigger millipede. Obviously, the bigger millipede would have a much longer body to roll around there, but this beautiful little guy with those wonderful colors is a pill millipede. And then I've got to be very quick before this guy gets away. This is not in slow motion. We have an African giant land snail. I'll try to give you some perspective now. Wow, I just have big fingers. He's not the biggest, or it is not the biggest. They're not really he or she, they are both together. They are proper hermaphrodites. But after the rains, we do tend to find these guys out and about. The largest snail in the world, as far as science knows, there may be some hidden in the oceans that are larger, but who would have thought that the biggest snail lives in these dry and sometimes harsh environments of Africa? But during the winter months, when it is so dry, they retract back into those shells, secrete a mucus layer that keeps the moisture inside, and then just what this guy's doing now, after the rains they come out and about and slither around on that kind of head-foot thing that makes up their body. There's eyes in the stalks. What an odd creature. Well adapted to surviving the dry times here. I always chuckle at the thought that, seeing how fast he moves, that you do get snails out in this part of the world that are eating carrion. You really just have to hope that something dies very close to you, otherwise there's not a chance you're going to be able to make it there before everything else has finished it. And if we have any French followers out there, I wonder if you have the same reaction that many of my guests have had in the summer months when they see those and they suddenly get very hungry. I believe they are edible. In fact, these are considered as one of the most problematic invasive species in the world. For some reason people thought snails would make good pets, and these African land snails have moved around the world. They're terrible. You can't even take them for a walk. Well, you can, but it's going to be very slow. But to try and encourage their demise, people promoted them as a source of food. Unfortunately, they were that good to eat that people then just bred more of them to eat more of them. So yeah, the African giant land snail has made its way across the world. Being so big, it probably outcompetes all the local species, and yeah, it's regarded as a terrible invasive species. But there we go, our little pill millipede has moved on as well, so I think we shall too. Okay, I only have a few seconds of them because they flew off, but this is the amur falcon, the old eastern red-footed kestrel, a bird of prey that arrives in South Africa now from November for a few months of the non-breeding part of its life, and it is responsible for the longest undertaking of any bird of prey, longest migratory route of any bird of prey in the world, a round trip of some 22,000 kilometers from Eastern Asia, Mongolia, Siberia, northeastern China, make their way down here during our summer months for the bounty of insects. And with the amount of rain we've had so far and are expecting, I can imagine we're going to have lots and lots of them coming through this year. Only a few at the moment. There were 3 that were sitting in this dead tree, but during the good times when they're locally abundant, they'll be in their thousands. So look forward to showing you more of the amur falcon in time. Sitting behind me is what we've come to see this morning. You can see the vultures in the tree, a lot of vultures on the ground, and a few hyenas. They're finishing off a giraffe carcass, which was how the week ended here. Now you might be thinking, another giraffe carcass, really? This one, however, was killed by lions. But before we get into that, let's recap the week that was. Started off with a guest, just a single guest. She was here for 3 days. South African lady, and she'd been to the Kruger for the first time a few months ago. Loved it, thought, no, let's come for a proper spoil and come and stay at a private lodge for a few days. So her request was for leopard and lion, and we were very lucky that they obliged, and by the time we got back for dinner that evening, we had spent some time with Nyaleti as well as the Naru males roaring out in the east. Unfortunately, they weren't in a good area, but the next morning we managed to go out and track them down and watch them do this. We also got to spend time with a really nice, relaxed elephant bull that afternoon.
It's very close, when it's coming closer. It's so beautiful.
Is that him that smells it?
No, it's a baboon.
Okay. And this was followed the next day by a really good sighting of a herd of close to 40 elephants walking through Tortolas Plains. don't want me to talk.
Very quiet.
Can you think of how many tons of animal are walking through here, and hear a little bit of movement in the grass? I can tell if the three of us walked through there, we'd be making about as much noise as them. So nice to get them out in the open like this. It's going to be one of the oldest ones. It's sometimes difficult to identify exactly who it is, but because they, as we said yesterday, they grow throughout their lives, so typically the older they get, the bigger they are.
Very light on the feet.
They are. And that's related to that foot structure that we were chatting about yesterday, and the way that they're kind of walking on their tippy toes. This one, yeah. It was also good to see some mapani worms out. I will definitely try and find some more of these to talk about during surf safari, maybe even later on in this drive. I'll go record a segment for the next episode. And we finished the big five with some very nice and relaxed buffalo bulls who came grazing right next to the car, which is not very common for these notoriously grumpy men. After K2 left, had a couple of days without guests, and then we had a new family, the Pilfords, that arrived, and some return guests of ours. The request from them was for wild dogs. Now, we hadn't seen any for a few days, so I was quite surprised that when I got mobile, the first update I got was that not far from Nkari Homestead there was a pack resting in the thickets close to a nice open area. So we immediately turned around and made our way down there. And had a really nice sighting of a large elephant bull in Must, taking out his frustration on these dogs whose presence he wasn't so happy about. These other pack members are going to look after it, they're going to provide food for it, so even if it can't hunt itself, it's going to get given food by the others. They're very social animals, so this is a very ritualized greeting. Another dog coming in from the left here. And they do this. Okay, and he's got no reason to fear these dogs. He knows they're too small. He's just doing that, chase them away earlier because he can. And he would do the same with lions, leopard, hyena. Elephants really don't like seeing other predators. Unfortunately, didn't get much of that action, but we left them to it and went to go see the River Pride, finishing off a wildebeest kill. In the evening, caught up with them the next morning, but as you would expect, fat and sleepy. The guides had found and lost Nyaleti and her cub, so we went to try and relocate them, and Jack went on foot and called us not long after that to say that he had. They were in a very dense area, but we managed to get to see the boy quite nicely as he popped out. So it's time for smelling exploration, so you might also find where maybe his mom's scent mark, maybe another leopard, the father's scent mark there.
They get darker in colour as they get older.
That afternoon, the dogs had also come through the area. They'd actually stolen a kill of hyenas, that had stolen a kill of Nyaleti and her son, and went to rest on Sunset Plains. Many of you may have stopped for drinks there. We decided to spend the afternoon, or late afternoon, with them as they got active, and ended up having an incredible sighting. I'm not going to beat about the bush. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but we watched them as our previous episodes catching a baby impala, but this was much more dramatic because of how it happened. I'm not going to show it now because I know that not everybody is up for seeing these things, so I'm going to put the photo series and the video series at the end of this video. I will put a warning before, but for those of you that want to watch, you can do so. Following on from the excitement of the wild dog, they left the area, but we did manage to have a very nice sighting of Nioleti on the prowl. Got her going up a tree again, and really nice. We're going to Impala Dam to stop for coffee, but there was a big group of elephants that descended upon that, which kind of ruined our coffee stop. Not ruined, delayed our coffee stop. After they left, we did stop for coffee. But this all brings us to one of our other sightings of the week, and that is, again, what is lying behind us here, and that is a dead giraffe on the road. Now, this all kicked off on Monday morning, previous Monday, and the guys were tracking some lions. The vehicle that was helping came down this road, and there was a dead giraffe lying on the road. There were 2 male lions in attendance in the morning. We didn't come in the morning, we actually got rained out. We were on our way here and the heavens opened. We got drenched, so we said, no, they're not going anywhere, let's come back in the afternoon. Got here on a hot afternoon. Lion that was still in attendance was super fat, lying in the grass, couldn't actually see clearly who it was. Went for a drink, came back after it cooled down, he still wasn't doing anything. So I thought, it's not going anywhere. It was still pretty much a full giraffe. Heading back to camp, a little further down the road, rounded a corner, and here were 2 Nara males walking down the road. Now, up until that point, everyone was saying that the lions on this kill were not the Narus. They thought it was the Hercules and the Sumatra male, and based on the little bit of the lion I saw, I didn't actually have any reason to doubt it. But seeing these 2 fat-bellied Narus walking away from him made me a little bit suspicious. Didn't come the next day, but eventually got here on the last morning. And as we pulled up, the lion was at the carcass, and instantly I could see that it was the limping Naru male. Not too bad at the moment, but you can imagine, as hot as it was yesterday, how the smell, how ripe this meat is going to get sitting in the sun, and how the smell will have just amplified over the course of just even a day.
Will jackal eat the same meat as hyena?
To a degree, the rotting meat is fine, but they haven't got the powerful jaws that are going to allow them to get to the bones and through this tough hide. He was feeding, there were some vultures around, black-backed jackal, and no hyenas, but he was looking very well fit. This was now the start of the 3rd day that he was still on this kill. He was limping quite badly, but that's probably from having sat on his backside for 3 days doing nothing, not actually working that leg. This led me to immediately realize that this had indeed been the Naru male's kill the whole time, and it hadn't been the Sumatra and the Hercules male that had killed it, but in fact the Narus. Why the other 2 Narus walked away on day 1 is beyond me. Actually led me to believe that maybe, like the other giraffes we've been seeing, this one had died of natural causes and the meat was tainted or something was wrong with it. I spoke to the guide who tracked it down, and he said no, he believed that it was definitely the males that had killed it. He had tracks for the 3 males stalking this thing. We did get the reserve to come and do an autopsy or a blood smear just to make sure there was no sign of anthrax or anything that came back negative. So it does appear that it was the lions, but I was going to come back yesterday morning and check on our fat lion, see how he was doing, but it poured with rain. It was still raining yesterday morning, so I didn't get out there, but he must have walked away during the night, and the scene that is now unfolding is what ensued. But yeah, it was a bit of a mystery for us, but it turns out that again, these Naru males don't need the ladies to get all their food for them. They are proving that even on their own, when they're walking these ridiculous distances patrolling their territory, they are pretty efficient hunters.
Is that bottom of their bone now? Bottom leg on the ground?
But yeah, as it stands now, that is what we're looking at. We'll go a little bit closer, see if we can get a little bit more detail in the sea, but the vultures and hyenas are sprawled out everywhere. So that is it from another giraffe calf. This hasn't been a good period for these male giraffes. Let us bumble about a little bit more, see if there's anything else we can show you this morning. Come to look for a flower and walked into a herd of elephants. Managed. So look at my stash of not tomatoes but sour plums that I managed to pick off a tree. And I did that because I mentioned in the last episode how if you're not careful, if you don't get there quickly, everyone else is going to get there. And one of the main culprits for consuming sour plums before us humans are the baboons. You can see the baboon tracks nicely here on the road. And then as we walk, over here you can see the discarded skins of the sour plums as they've been walking along. All along there, so they must have literally stored them in their mouths or grabbed them and just run and ate them while the others couldn't. And again, if we don't do it, they get them all. If ever you were in doubt about how green the green season is, look around here. Lush, lush, lush. It is wonderful to see the bush this wet and green and water everywhere in the roads. It's been a bit of a quiet drive since the hyenas. It's also now 20 to 11, so it's getting quite late. The sun's coming out. Some ellies and impalas and wildebeest, but also with the amount of rain we've had, there's certain areas that we just can't access because of the black cotton soil, so my attempts to look for the river pride have been thwarted. But I believe that I have enough to make an episode, so I'm going to use this moment now to sign off and say cheers. Hope you've all had a wonderful festive season, and I wish you could say wish you'd all have had a wonderful 2020, but that would be a stretch. I know it's been a challenging year for all of us, but we have to look on the bright side and look forward to 2021 and hope that it's going to bring about a lot of positive change and a couple of steps towards getting back to the life that we once knew in BC times, before COVID times. So this will be our last episode of 2020. We will definitely be back in 2021 with a lot more, hopefully a lot more news. Just a little teaser. Our River Pride have had cubs. I'll leave it at that, but hopefully we'll be bringing those to you in the not too distant future. But folks, wherever in the world you may be, thank you for all the support you've given us over the last 12 months. It's been wonderful being able to bring this incredible landscape and nature reserve to you from here at Tantatula Safari Camp, and we hope that you'll tune in again in January to catch up on some more sofa safaris. Don't forget, for those of you that want to see the wild dog kill, it's going to be playing now. For those of you that don't, you can turn off and go and enjoy your last few days of 2020. Ooh, buffalo, so maybe don't turn off just yet. There we go. If that is not a summer scene for you, I don't think I'll be able to give you one. Nice bachelor group of buffaloes chilling it out here. As I said, the sun's broken through now and it's definitely risen in temperature, so I can understand why they would want to spend their Christmas day not in a Santa suit but in the mud instead. And now with that, those that don't want to watch wild dogs can turn off. Those that do, sit back and enjoy another few minutes of this episode of Sofa Safari. Until next time, everyone, cheers. Okay, so that wild dog video that I mentioned earlier, the sighting, here it is. And again, please, if you are still watching, this is not for sensitive viewers. It does involve a kill, and yeah, not just the feeding, the actual killing taking place. Just before I do show it, I want to say thank you very much to Barry Pulford for sharing this video with us and allowing us to put it on our social media platforms. Not everyone's cup of tea, but it's just really intense to watch. We got to the pack as they woke up. They headed off at some speed, as dogs normally do, but maybe dropped a gear or two quite early on, and they were heading to the east, ran through the Mashatan riverbed onto Cheetah Plains, where there's almost always impalas. As we got around, we could just see them running across Cheetah Plains, so we shot around to the next open area. Saw one dog running straight to Mashatan Dam, and Jack said, let's go to the dam, and as we got there, you could see dogs dotted around, and it didn't take long to realize why they were dotted around the dam. And it was because this young baby impala, in its attempt to flee from the pack, had run straight into the dam. It was obviously going to drown if it didn't get out, but wherever it went, the dogs were following. And what you see now is what we got to witness.
It's going to try and come out here.
Someone pull me up.
Let's help it onto the truck. Oh no,
It's drowned.
it's drowned. Oh no, oh. Oh man, so horrible. They run off with the lions there.
I'm not a guide that often gets emotional about kills. I understand the circle of life very well. I've seen both ends of it here in my time, but there was just something about this and watching that poor little baby trying its best and clearly getting more and more exhausted. It was on a hiding to nothing, and the inevitable was always going to unfold. So my heart did break a little / a lot for that little guy, but it is part of nature, survival of the fittest, and these dogs need to eat too so that they can maintain their numbers and help save their own species, because as one commentator on one of my social media posts said, we've got to remember there's 100,000 impalas in the Kruger and about 300 wild dogs. So yeah, that was it. Definitely the most exciting highlight of the week, but I hope you enjoyed that, for those of you that stayed around to watch. But until next time, take care again.